The night shift at McDonald's. Marcus had worked at McDonald's for 3 months, but tonight was his first time closing alone. The manager, Janet, had called in sick, leaving him with just Sarah, a quiet girl who barely spoke above a whisper. The restaurant was supposed to close at midnight, but corporate had recently implemented a new policy: stay open until the last customer left. It was 11:47 p.m. when the lights in the dining area began to flicker. "That's weird," Sarah muttered, looking up from the fryer she was cleaning. The fluorescent bulbs buzzed ominously overhead, casting erratic shadows across the red and yellow interior. Marcus shrugged it off. Old building, old wiring. He'd seen worse at his previous job at a gas station. But as he wiped down the counter, he noticed something that made his stomach tighten. The security cameras were still recording, their red lights blinking steadily, but the monitors showed only static. At 11:52 p.m., the drive-thru bell chimed. Marcus put on his headset and forced his customer service voice. "Welcome to McDonald's, how can I help you tonight?" Silence. He waited 30 seconds, then repeated the greeting. Still nothing. Through the drive-thru window, he could see a dark sedan idling at the speaker, its engine running but no lights on. The driver's seat appeared empty. "Hello?" Marcus called again. "Sir." "Ma'am." The car's engine cut off abruptly, leaving an unsettling quiet that seemed to press against the windows. Sarah had stopped cleaning and was staring at the drive-thru monitor, her face pale. "Maybe they left," she suggested, but her voice wavered. Marcus walked to the window and peered out. The car was still there, but something was wrong. The windows were completely black, not tinted, black. Like someone had painted them from the inside. And was that movement in the back seat? The drive-thru bell chimed again. Marcus practically jumped out of his skin. He rushed back to the headset, his hands trembling slightly. "Welcome to McDonald's," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. This time, there was a response. A voice so low and distorted it seemed to come from the bottom of a well. "I'd like to place an order." "Of course, what can I get for you?" "One Happy Meal." Marcus typed it into the register. "What would you like to drink with that?" "The child's blood." Marcus's fingers froze over the keyboard. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "The child's blood. From the playground." Sarah had moved closer, and Marcus could see the terror in her eyes. He looked toward the playplace, McDonald's indoor playground that had been closed for renovations for the past month. The entrance was blocked by plastic sheeting, but through a gap, he could swear he saw small handprints pressed against the glass from the inside. "Sir, I think there might be some interference on the line," Marcus said, his voice cracking. "Could you repeat your drink order?" "The blood," the voice repeated, but now it sounded like multiple voices speaking in unison. "The blood of the children who played. The blood of the children who stayed." The sedan's headlights suddenly blazed to life, blinding white beams that seemed to burn through the darkness. But instead of illuminating the drive-thru lane, the light bent upward, casting impossible shadows that moved independently of any object. Sarah grabbed Marcus's arm. "We need to call the police." Marcus reached for his phone, but the screens throughout the restaurant suddenly flickered to life. The security monitors, the ordering displays, even the ice cream machine's digital readout, all showing the same image, the interior of the playplace, but not as it was now. This was the playplace as it used to be, filled with children laughing and playing, but their laughter was wrong. It echoed with a hollow, otherworldly quality that seemed to seep through the speakers. "Welcome to McDonald's," the voice from the drive-thru crackled through every speaker in the restaurant now. "We've been waiting for you." The children on the screen stopped playing and turned toward the camera. Their eyes were solid black, and their mouths stretched into impossible grins that split their faces from ear to ear. One by one, they began to walk toward the camera, their movements jerky and unnatural, like marionettes controlled by a drunk puppeteer. Marcus yanked the headset off, but the voice continued. It was coming from everywhere now, the walls, the floor, the very air around them. "You can't leave," it whispered. "The restaurant is always open. Always serving. Always hungry." The lights went out completely, plunging them into absolute darkness. The only illumination came from the twisted headlights of the sedan, which now seemed to be shining directly through the building's walls. In that sickly light, Marcus could see that they weren't alone. The dining area was full of customers. They sat in the booths and at the tables, perfectly still, their heads turned at unnatural angles to stare at Marcus and Sarah. Some were adults in business suits, others were families with children, all frozen in a parody of normal dining. But their food was wrong. The burgers leaked something dark and viscous. The French fries writhed like worms. The drinks bubbled and steamed with substances that definitely weren't soda. "Welcome to McDonald's," one of the customers said without moving their lips. It was a young boy, maybe 8 years old, holding a Happy Meal toy that appeared to be made of bones. "We've been waiting so long for fresh meat," Sarah screamed, a sound that seemed to trigger something in the restaurant. All the customers turned their heads in perfect unison, the movement accompanied by a chorus of cracking vertebrae. Their eyes reflected the strange light like animals in the dark. Marcus grabbed Sarah's hand and ran toward the back exit, but the door wouldn't budge. The handle turned, but the door felt like it was welded shut. Behind them, the customers were standing up from their tables, their movements accompanied by the sound of grinding metal and breaking glass. "The night shift never ends," they chanted in unison, their voices layering into a cacophony of horror. "The night shift never ends. The night shift never ends." The fryer suddenly roared to life, flames shooting up toward the ceiling. But the oil inside wasn't oil, it was thick, red, and moving. Sarah pressed herself against the door, sobbing, while Marcus frantically searched for another way out. The drive-through window. It was still open. "This way!" Marcus shouted, pulling Sarah toward the window. But as they ran, the floor beneath their feet began to change. The tiles were melting, revealing something underneath that looked disturbingly like flesh, complete with veins and tendons that pulsed with a sickening rhythm. The customers were walking toward them now, their movements becoming more fluid, more predatory. The young boy with the bone toy was in the lead, his smile never wavering. "Don't you want to take our order?" he asked, his voice sweet and innocent despite the horror surrounding them. "We've been so patient. So very, very patient." Marcus reached the drive-through window and threw it open, but instead of the parking lot, he saw only darkness, a void so complete it seemed to swallow light itself. The sedan was there, hovering in the nothingness, its windows now rolled down to reveal the driver. It wasn't human. It had once been, perhaps, but now it was something else. Its face was a McDonald's uniform stretched over a skull, complete with a name tag that read, "Manager," in letters that seemed to shift and crawl. Its eyes were the golden arches, bent and twisted into a shape that hurt to look at. "Your shift isn't over," it said, its voice the sound of deep fryers and grinding meat. "Your shift will never be over. You're part of the McDonald's family now." Sarah was pulling at Marcus's arm, trying to drag him away from the window, but there was nowhere to go. The customers had formed a circle around them, their faces expectant, hungry. The boy held up his Happy Meal box, and Marcus could see that it was full of tiny bones, each one perfectly clean and white. "These are from the last night shift workers," the boy explained conversationally. "They tried to leave too. But you can't leave McDonald's. McDonald's never lets you leave." The manager in the sedan leaned forward, its uniform rustling like dying leaves. "Clock in," it commanded. "Your real shift is about to begin." Marcus felt something cold and metallic being pressed into his hand. He looked down and saw a name tag, identical to the one the manager wore, but this one read, "Marcus, night shift, forever." The pin attached itself to his shirt without him moving, boring through the fabric and into his chest. He could feel it worming its way toward his heart, and with each beat, he felt less human, more corporate. Sarah screamed beside him as her own name tag materialized, already pinning itself to her uniform. Sarah, night shift, forever. The customers began to applaud, a slow, rhythmic clapping that echoed through the restaurant. The fryer continued to burn with its impossible red flames, and somewhere in the place, children were laughing, children who had been dead for years. Marcus tried to speak, to scream, to do anything, but his voice came out in the flat, cheerful tone of a McDonald's employee. "Welcome to McDonald's, how can I help you tonight?" Sarah's eyes met his, and he saw his own horror reflected there, but when she opened her mouth, the same corporate script emerged. "Would you like to make that a combo?" The manager smiled, revealing teeth that were French fries, golden and crispy. "Perfect. Now you understand. McDonald's is forever. McDonald's is family. And family never leaves." The lights flickered back on, but they were wrong now, too bright, too yellow, casting everything in the sickly hue of artificial cheese. The customers returned to their seats, their movements now perfectly normal, perfectly human, as if nothing had happened. But Marcus knew better. He could feel the name tag burning against his chest, could feel his humanity being slowly digested like a happy meal. He walked to the register, his movements automatic, corporate, and waited for the next customer. Outside, a new car pulled up to the drive-thru. Marcus put on his headset and smiled his McDonald's smile. "Welcome to McDonald's," he said, his voice bright and cheerful and completely devoid of hope. "We're always open. How can I help you tonight? The night shift never ends. The night shift never ends. The night shift never ends." Detective Lisa Chen had seen her share of crime scenes, but nothing had prepared her for what she found at the McDonald's on Elm Street. 3 customers had died simultaneously while eating their meals, their faces frozen in expressions of pure terror. The coroner's report was baffling: no signs of poisoning, no allergic reactions, no obvious cause of death. They had simply stopped living. The restaurant had been closed for investigation for 2 weeks when Lisa decided to interview the night manager, Derek Walsh, one more time. He was a nervous man in his 40s, constantly fidgeting with his McDonald's tie and avoiding eye contact. "Tell me again about the secret menu," Lisa said, sitting across from him in the empty restaurant. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the red plastic booth. Derek's hands trembled as he reached for his coffee. "I told you, detective, I don't know anything about a secret menu. We serve what's on the board. That's it." But Lisa had done her homework. In the weeks following the deaths, she'd found disturbing posts on social media from McDonald's employees across the state. Whispered rumors about items that weren't on the regular menu, orders that came through the system automatically at exactly 3:33 a.m., requests for food that shouldn't exist. "Derek," Lisa leaned forward, "I know you're lying. I've talked to other managers. They've seen the orders come through. The Big Mac with special sauce, the chicken nuggets made from fresh meat, the apple pies filled with something that isn't apples." Derek's face went pale. He glanced around the empty restaurant as if someone might be listening. "You don't understand," he whispered. "Some secrets are kept secret for a reason. 3 people are dead. And more will die if you keep digging." Derek snapped, then immediately looked horrified at his outburst. "Please, detective. Just close the case. Say it was a gas leak or something. Anything but the truth." Lisa pulled out her phone and showed him a screenshot. This was posted by a McDonald's employee in Denver 3 days ago. "Had another secret menu order last night. Customer asked for item number 666. The meat was still moving. Manager says to serve it anyway or I'm fired. What do I do?" Derek stared at the screen, his breathing becoming rapid and shallow. "Oh God. It's spreading." "What's spreading, Derek?" He stood up abruptly, pacing to the counter where the registers sat dark and silent. 20 years ago, when I first started working here, the previous manager told me about the secret menu. Said it had been around since the beginning, since Ray Kroc himself. Items that weren't on any official McDonald's list, but they'd show up on the system sometimes. Usually in the middle of the night. Lisa followed him, her detective instinct screaming that she was finally getting somewhere. What kind of items? At first, they seemed normal. Burgers with different ingredients, shakes and flavors we didn't carry. But the instructions were specific. Disturbing. The McRib with human-grade ribs. The Filet-O-Fish using fresh catch from the River of Souls. Happy Meals with toys that moved on their own. Derek opened one of the registers, and Lisa was surprised to see it contained a thick, leather-bound book instead of money. The cover was unmarked, but the leather looked old and stained. "This is the real menu," Derek said, his voice barely audible. "Every McDonald's has one, hidden where only managers can find it. We're not supposed to talk about it. We're not supposed to acknowledge it exists. But when the orders come through..." He shuddered. "We have to fulfill them." Lisa reached for the book, but Derek pulled it back. "Don't. Please. Some knowledge is too dangerous." "Derek, I'm a police officer investigating 3 deaths. I need to see that book." Reluctantly, Derek handed it over. The moment Lisa's fingers touched the leather, she felt a chill run through her body. The book was warm, almost fevered, and seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. She opened it to the first page and immediately wished she hadn't. The writing appeared to be in English, but the letters kept shifting, rearranging themselves as she watched. The first item listed was, "The Happy Meal, ingredients, 1 child's laughter, 1 child's fear, 1 child's dreams, served with a side of innocence lost forever." "Jesus Christ," Lisa breathed. "What is this?" "Keep reading," Derek said grimly. "It gets worse." Lisa turned the page and found herself looking at what appeared to be photographs, but they moved like video clips. A burger being assembled, but the meat was gray and writhing. French fries that screamed when bitten. A milkshake that contained floating eyeballs that blinked in unison. "The McHorror meal," she read aloud from the description below one of the moving images. "Served only to those who truly deserve it. Ingredients include the customer's deepest fears, their worst memories, and their final moments." "That's what killed those 3 people," Derek said quietly. "They ordered from the secret menu without knowing what they were asking for." Lisa looked up at him. "How? How did they order something they didn't know existed?" Derek pointed to the ordering kiosks near the entrance. "Those things are connected to more than just our regular system. Sometimes, late at night, they show different options. Options that aren't supposed to be there. The customers see something that looks appealing, maybe even familiar, but it's twisted." As if summoned by his words, one of the kiosks suddenly flickered to life. Lisa spun around, her hand instinctively going to her service weapon. The screen showed the normal McDonald's menu, but as she watched, the items began to change. Big Mac became Big Hack, made with fresh hacker, special sauce of regret. Chicken McNuggets shifted to Children McNuggets, 100% real child, locally sourced. Apple Pie transformed into Adam's Pie, forbidden fruit with a hint of original sin. "It's starting," Derek whispered, backing away from the kiosk. "Detective, we need to leave. Now." But Lisa was transfixed by the screen. More items were appearing, items she'd never seen on any menu. "The Last Supper meal, share with your 12 closest friends. Warning, one will betray you. The Afterlife combo, served at room temperature, mortuary cold. Includes a drink from the river Styx. The Cannibal's Choice, you are what you eat, and now you're someone else." The kiosk began making sounds, not the normal electronic beeps, but something organic. Wet, slithering sounds like meat being processed. The screen started to bulge outward, as if something was trying to push through from the other side. "Detective." Derek grabbed her arm. "We have to go." But it was too late. The front doors had locked themselves, the electronic locks engaging with a series of ominous clicks. The windows began to darken, not from tinting but from something black and viscous spreading across the glass from the inside. All of the kiosks were active now, their screens showing the secret menu in its full, horrifying glory. And customers were appearing, translucent figures that flickered in and out of existence, approaching the kiosks with jerky, unnatural movements. "Welcome to McDonald's," a voice echoed through the restaurant's sound system, but it wasn't any voice Lisa recognized. It was old, ancient, speaking with the authority of something that had existed since the first McDonald's opened its doors. "We've been expecting you." The figures at the kiosks were placing orders, their phantom fingers tapping screens that shouldn't have been able to register their touch. With each order, the restaurant grew darker, colder. The familiar McDonald's decorations began to change, the golden arches twisted into shapes that hurt to look at, the Happy Meal boxes sprouted tiny legs and scurried across the floor like insects. Derek was praying now, clutching a small cross that Lisa hadn't noticed before. "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." The kitchen came alive behind the counter. Grills fired up on their own, fryers bubbled with oil that was definitely not vegetable-based, and the ice cream machine, which had been broken for months, began dispensing something that moved and writhed as it fell. "Order up," called a voice from the kitchen, but there was no one there. A tray slid across the counter toward them, containing items that defied description. The burger patty was still breathing. The French fries were arranged to spell out, "Help US," in what looked like blood. The drink cup contained something that pressed against the sides from within, trying to escape. Lisa drew her gun, though she knew it would be useless against whatever this was. "What do you want?" she shouted at the empty air. "To serve you," came the reply, now coming from everywhere at once. "To serve you the meal you've earned. The meal you deserve." The phantom customers turned toward them in unison, their faces becoming clearer with each passing second. Lisa recognized them now, they were the 3 victims from 2 weeks ago. But they weren't dead, not exactly. They were trapped, eternal customers in an eternal restaurant, forced to eat forever from a menu of horrors. "Join us," one of them said, her voice distant and hollow. "The food is, to die for." A tray appeared in front of Lisa, filled with items she didn't remember ordering. A burger that pulsed like a heart, fries that looked like severed fingers, and a drink that reflected not her face but her worst childhood fear, the monster she was convinced lived under her bed. The detective special, Derek read from the secret menu book, which had opened itself to a new page. Served with a side of truth, a helping of justice, and the knowledge that some cases should never be solved. Lisa felt compelled to reach for the burger. Her hand moved without her permission, lifting the horrifying sandwich toward her mouth. She could smell it now, not the familiar scent of McDonald's food, but something else. Something that smelled like graves and broken promises. "Don't," Derek said, but his voice was growing distant. "Don't eat it, detective. Once you take a bite, you become part of the secret menu forever." But Lisa couldn't stop herself. The burger was almost to her lips when she noticed something about Derek. His uniform was changing, aging, becoming stained with substances she didn't want to identify. His name tag no longer read Derek Walsh, manager, but Derek Walsh, secret menu coordinator, 20 years of service. "You've been here the whole time," she realized. "You never left. You've been serving the secret menu for 20 years. Derek's face crumpled with relief and sorrow. "I tried to warn you. I tried to get you to stop investigating. But once someone learns about the secret menu, they have to become part of it. Those are the rules." Lisa dropped the burger and ran for the door, but her feet were moving through what felt like thick syrup. The restaurant was stretching, expanding, becoming impossibly large. The exit was miles away now, and getting farther with each step. "Welcome to the team," Derek called after her. "Your shift starts now, and it never, ever ends." The phantom customers began to applaud, a sound like bones rattling in a coffin. The kiosks displayed a new message, "Now hiring, secret menu staff. No experience necessary. Immortality provided." Lisa felt the McDonald's uniform materialize on her body, replacing her detective's clothes. Her badge transformed into a name tag, Lisa Chen, secret menu detective, solving crimes against appetite since today. She tried to scream, but when she opened her mouth, only one phrase emerged: "Would you like to try our secret menu today?" The restaurant returned to normal lighting, normal sounds, normal appearance. But Lisa knew it was all an illusion. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she could still see the real McDonald's, the one that existed between the cracks of reality, serving impossible meals to customers who had been dead for decades. The front doors unlocked with a cheerful chime. "We're open," Lisa heard herself say, though she hadn't meant to speak. "We're always open. And we're always ready to serve you exactly what you deserve." The secret menu was ready for its next victim. Jenny Martinez had been planning her daughter Emma's 7th birthday party for weeks. Emma had begged for a McDonald's party in the playplace, complete with Ronald McDonald himself. Jenny had initially resisted, she preferred healthier options, but Emma's pleading eyes had worn her down. Now, standing in the McDonald's parking lot on a gray Saturday afternoon, Jenny wondered if she'd made the right choice. The McDonald's looked older than she remembered, its red and yellow paint faded and peeling. The golden arches seemed slightly askew, and several letters in the neon sign were burned out, making it read McDonald's. But Emma was bouncing with excitement in the back seat, and 12 other children would be arriving soon. "Mommy, look." Emma pressed her face against the window. "Ronald is already here." Jenny looked toward the restaurant and saw a figure in the iconic red and yellow costume standing by the entrance. But something was off about the costume. It looked worn, patched in places, and the colors seemed muted. The white face paint appeared to be cracking, and the red smile looked like it had been drawn on with something darker than lipstick. "That's nice, honey," Jenny said, gathering the gift bags and decorations from the trunk. "Let's go set up." Inside, the restaurant felt colder than it should have. The air conditioning seemed to be working overtime, and Jenny could see her breath in small puffs. The manager, a thin man named Pete, greeted them with an overly enthusiastic smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mrs. Martinez. Welcome to McDonald's. We're so excited for Emma's special day." His voice had a rehearsed quality, like he was reading from a script. "Ronald is very eager to meet the birthday girl." Jenny looked around for the costumed figure she'd seen outside, but the dining area was empty except for one old man in the corner booth, slowly eating French fries one at a time while staring at nothing. "Where is Ronald?" Emma asked, tugging on Pete's uniform. "Oh, he's getting ready in the back," Pete said, his smile widening impossibly. "He wants to make a grand entrance for such a special little girl." Pete led them to the party area, a section of the restaurant cordoned off with faded McDonald's banners. The playplace was visible through a glass partition, its colorful tubes and slides looking somehow menacing in the dim lighting. Jenny noticed that several of the playground equipment pieces were draped in plastic sheeting. "Sorry about the mess," Pete explained, following her gaze. "We're doing some maintenance. But don't worry, the main play area is still open." As Jenny began setting up decorations, the other children started arriving with their parents. Soon the party area was filled with 7 excited kids, all chattering about happy meals and playground adventures. But Jenny noticed that none of the other parents stayed. They all seemed eager to drop off their children and leave, making excuses about errands and appointments. "Don't worry, Mrs. Martinez," Pete assured her as the last parent hurried out. "We'll take excellent care of all the children. This will be a party they'll never forget." The first sign that something was wrong came when they ordered the food. Pete took their order personally, scribbling notes on a pad that looked ancient and stained. When Jenny asked for apple slices instead of fries for some of the kids, Pete's smile faltered for just a moment. "I'm sorry, but for birthday parties, we only serve our special menu," he said. "Trust me, the children will love it." 20 minutes later, the food arrived. The Happy Meals looked normal enough, but the toys inside the boxes were wrong. Instead of the latest movie tie-in figures, each box contained small, crude dolls that looked handmade. The dolls were roughly the same size as the children at the party, and disturbingly, they seemed to resemble each child specifically. Emma held up her doll, and Jenny's blood ran cold. The doll had Emma's exact hairstyle, her favorite purple dress, even a tiny replica of the heart-shaped locket Jenny had given her for Christmas. But the doll's face was twisted into an expression of terror, its mouth open in a silent scream. "Mommy, why does my toy look scared?" Emma asked. Before Jenny could answer, the lights dimmed and a recording of "Happy Birthday" began playing over the restaurant speakers. But the melody was wrong, played in a minor key. It sounded more like a funeral dirge than a celebration song. "Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls," Pete announced, his voice echoing strangely in the nearly empty restaurant, "please welcome the star of our show, Ronald McDonald." The kitchen doors swung open, and Ronald McDonald emerged. But this wasn't the cheerful mascot Jenny remembered from her own childhood. This Ronald was tall, impossibly tall, with arms that seemed too long for his body. His red and yellow costume was dirty and torn, and his white face paint was indeed cracking, revealing something underneath that didn't look like human skin. "Hello, children," Ronald said, his voice a raspy whisper that somehow carried throughout the room. "Are you ready for the most special birthday party ever?" The children cheered, but Jenny noticed that several of them seemed hypnotized, their eyes glassy and unfocused. Only Emma still looked alert, and she was pressing close to her mother's side. "Mommy," Emma whispered, "Ronald's smile is painted on. I can see his real mouth underneath." Jenny looked more closely and gasped. Emma was right. The iconic red smile was just paint over what appeared to be a mouth full of broken, yellowed teeth. And his eyes. His eyes were completely black, reflecting the fluorescent lights like an animal's. "Now, children," Ronald continued, "who wants to play a special game? It's called, Follow the Leader, and I'm the leader." The children stood up as if controlled by invisible strings, all except Emma, who clutched her mother's hand tightly. "I don't want to play," Emma said loudly. "I want to go home." Ronald's head snapped toward Emma with a movement that was too quick, too sharp. "But birthday girls don't get to choose," he said, his painted smile never wavering even as his real mouth formed different words underneath. "Birthday girls have to follow the rules." Pete stepped forward, placing a hand on Jenny's shoulder. His fingers were ice cold through her sweater. "Mrs. Martinez, perhaps you'd like to wait in the car. The children's program can be intense for adults." "I'm not leaving my daughter," Jenny said firmly, pulling Emma closer. "Oh, but you must," Pete insisted, and Jenny noticed that his eyes had turned the same flat black as Ronald's. "It's policy. Adults interfere with the magic." The other children were lining up behind Ronald now, their movements mechanical and synchronized. They looked like sleepwalkers, their eyes vacant and staring. Ronald turned toward the playplace, gesturing for them to follow. "Come along, children," he said in his terrible whisper voice. "Time to play some very special games." Jenny stood up, pulling Emma with her. "We're leaving. Now." But when she turned toward the exit, she found that the front doors were chained shut from the inside. Through the windows, she could see that the parking lot was empty, all the other parents' cars were gone, as if they'd never been there at all. "I'm afraid that's not possible," Pete said, his voice now matching Ronald's whisper. "The party has already begun. And birthday parties at McDonald's, they last forever." Emma screamed as invisible hands began pulling her away from her mother. Jenny fought desperately, but she couldn't see what was dragging her daughter toward the playplace. Emma's feet left the ground as she was lifted into the air by forces Jenny couldn't comprehend. "Mommy!" Emma cried. "Help me!" Jenny ran after her daughter, but Ronald blocked her path. Up close, she could see that his costume wasn't a costume at all, it was his skin, somehow transformed into the familiar red and yellow pattern. And his face, beneath the cracking white paint, his features were constantly shifting, as if he couldn't decide what he wanted to look like. "Every McDonald's needs children," Ronald explained conversationally, as if he were discussing the weather. "Happy children, laughing children, children who will play forever and ever. And birthdays are special, birthday children taste the sweetest." In the playplace, Jenny could see the other children climbing through the tubes and slides, but their movements were wrong. They moved too quickly, at impossible angles, sometimes seeming to pass through the solid plastic walls. And their laughter echoed with a hollow, metallic quality that made Jenny's teeth ache. "Emma!" Jenny screamed, trying to push past Ronald. "Emma, run!" But Emma was already in the playplace, being pulled up into the colorful tubes by hands that emerged from the walls themselves. Jenny could hear her daughter calling for help, but the sound was growing fainter and more distant, as if Emma was being carried far away rather than just into the attached playground. Pete appeared beside Jenny, now clearly visible as something that had never been human. His McDonald's uniform was part of his body, the fabric fused with his skin. His name tag read, "Pete, Manager, Serving Children since 1955. "Every McDonald's has a secret ingredient," Pete explained, his voice multiplying until it sounded like a chorus. "The special sauce on our burgers, the flavor in our fries, the sweetness in our shakes. Do you know what that ingredient is, Mrs. Martinez?" Jenny was pounding on the glass partition, trying to break through to reach her daughter, but the glass was impossibly thick and warm to the touch, like living tissue. "Joy," Pete continued. "Pure, innocent joy. And where do we get the most joy? From children's birthday parties. From the moment when they're happiest, most excited, most alive. We harvest that joy, Mrs. Martinez. We harvest it and serve it to the world." In the playplace, Jenny could see Emma pressed against the glass from the inside, her mouth open in a scream that Jenny couldn't hear. But as she watched, Emma's expression began to change. The fear faded, replaced by a dreamy contentment. Her eyes grew glassy and vacant, matching the other children. "Don't worry," Ronald said, placing one impossibly long hand on the glass where Emma's face was pressed. "She'll be happy here. They're all happy here. Happy forever and ever, playing our games, following our rules, being everything we need them to be." Jenny tried to call the police, but her phone had no signal. She ran to the landline behind the counter, but when she picked up the receiver, she heard only children's laughter, the same hollow, metallic laughter coming from the playplace. "There's no one to call," Pete said. "There's nowhere to go. This McDonald's exists between moments, Mrs. Martinez. Between the tick and the tock of the clock. Your daughter's birthday party will last forever, and she'll never grow old, never be sad, never be anything but perfectly, eternally happy." Through the glass, Jenny watched as Emma began to climb through the playground equipment with the same impossible movements as the other children. Her daughter's face was now completely blank, all personality drained away, leaving only the empty contentment of a perfect McDonald's customer. "No," Jenny whispered, pressing her palms against the glass. "Please, no." "Oh yes," Ronald said, his painted smile growing wider until it stretched beyond the boundaries of his face. "And the best part? In exactly 1 hour, when the party officially ends, you'll forget you ever had a daughter. You'll go home to an empty house and never wonder why there's a child's bedroom you never use. That's the real magic of McDonald's, we don't just take the children. We take the memory of them." Jenny felt something changing in her mind, like important files being deleted from a computer. Emma's face was already becoming harder to recall. The sound of her laughter, the way she said, "Mommy," the feeling of small arms wrapped around her neck in a hug, all of it was fading. What was I doing here? Jenny asked, confusion replacing her panic. Just leaving, Pete said kindly, unchaining the front doors. Thank you for choosing McDonald's. We hope you'll come back soon. Jenny walked toward the exit, a vague sense that she'd forgotten something important nagging at the back of her mind. As she reached the door, she turned back one last time. Was there supposed to be a birthday party today? Ronald McDonald waved cheerfully from behind the counter, his two long arms moving in a parody of friendliness. No party today, he said in his normal, cheerful mascot voice. But don't worry. There's always a party at McDonald's. We're always happy to serve you. Jenny left the restaurant and drove home, never noticing the child's car seat in the back of her car, never wondering why she had 12 unused party favor bags in her trunk, never questioning why her house had a bedroom decorated with unicorns and rainbows that she never entered. In the playplace, Emma continued to play with the other children, all of them perfectly happy, perfectly content, perfectly trapped. And Ronald McDonald stood guard, waiting for the next birthday party, the next group of children, the next harvest of joy. Because at McDonald's, the customer is always right. And the customer is always a child. Forever and ever and ever. Tom Brennan had always dreamed of owning his own business. After 20 years of working dead-end jobs, the opportunity to purchase a McDonald's franchise seemed like a gift from heaven. The location was perfect, right off Highway 9, with plenty of parking and high visibility. The price was surprisingly low, but the corporate representative, Ms. Valdez, explained that away easily. The previous owner had some personal issues, she said, adjusting her perfectly pressed business suit. Nothing to do with the restaurant itself. Corporate is eager to get new management in place as quickly as possible. Tom signed the papers that afternoon, officially becoming the owner of McDonald's restaurant number 4417. Ms. Valdez handed him the keys with a smile that seemed genuine enough, though it never quite reached her eyes. Congratulations, Mr. Brennan, she said. You're now part of the McDonald's family. Remember, we have very specific standards that must be maintained. The operations manual will explain everything. Follow it exactly, and you'll do just fine. The operations manual was massive, over 800 pages of detailed instructions covering everything from cooking times to customer service protocols. Tom spent his first week studying it religiously, but some sections seemed oddly specific. Pages 247 to 251 dealt with customer complaints beyond normal parameters. Pages 602 to 615 covered equipment behavior during unusual circumstances. Page 731 was titled Emergency Protocols for Supernatural Events and was mostly blacked out with permanent marker. Tom's first month of ownership went smoothly. The restaurant was profitable, the staff seemed competent, and customers appeared satisfied. But little things began to bother him. The walk-in freezer was always exactly 32 degrees, no matter how he adjusted the thermostat. The ice cream machine worked perfectly, despite every other McDonald's owner he'd talked to complaining about constant breakdowns. And sometimes, late at night when he was doing paperwork, he could swear he heard children laughing in the empty playplace. It was during his 6th week that Tom noticed the basement door. He'd been in every part of the restaurant, kitchen, dining area, storage rooms, office, but somehow he'd never seen the heavy metal door tucked behind the employee break room. It was unmarked and secured with 3 different locks. When he asked his assistant manager, Carol, about it, her face went pale. That's corporate storage, she stammered. We're not supposed to go down there. It's in the employee handbook. Section 47B, Restricted Areas. Tom pulled out his copy of the employee handbook that night. Section 47B was just one paragraph. Certain areas of McDonald's restaurants are designated as corporate use only. Employees are strictly forbidden from accessing these areas without direct authorization from McDonald's corporate headquarters. Violation of this policy will result in immediate termination and potential legal action. But Tom was the owner now. Surely he had access to every part of his own restaurant. He decided to call Ms. Valdez the next morning, but her number had been disconnected. When he called McDonald's corporate, they had no record of anyone named Valdez. The customer service representative was polite but unhelpful. "I'm sorry, Mr. Brennan, but I show that restaurant number 4417 is currently unowned. Are you perhaps thinking of a different location?" That night, Tom stayed late and examined the basement door more carefully. The locks were old but well maintained, and one of them looked like it might be opened with the set of keys Ms. Valdez had given him. After 20 minutes of trying different combinations, he found the right key for the first lock. The second lock opened with another key from the set. But the third lock was different. It didn't even have a keyhole, just a smooth metal surface with what looked like a handprint etched into it. Tom pressed his palm against the handprint. The lock clicked open immediately, and Tom jerked his hand back as if burned. The metal surface was ice cold, and for just a moment, he could have sworn he felt something grab his fingers from the other side. The basement door swung open silently, revealing a staircase that descended into absolute darkness. The air that wafted up smelled like old grease and something else, something organic and unpleasant. Tom grabbed a flashlight from the office and started down the stairs. The basement was much larger than it should have been. The restaurant above couldn't possibly contain a space this vast. Tom's flashlight beam revealed industrial equipment that looked decades old, massive ovens, grinding machines, and vats full of bubbling liquid that definitely wasn't cooking oil. The walls were lined with photographs, hundreds of them, showing every McDonald's restaurant Tom had ever seen and many he hadn't. But it was the photograph subjects that made Tom's blood run cold. Each photo showed a McDonald's owner or manager, but they weren't posed business portraits. These were candid shots, people working late in their restaurants, arriving early in the morning, locking up at night. And in every single photograph, the person was smiling. Not a natural smile, but the same forced, corporate smile Tom had seen on Ms. Valdez's face. In the center of the basement stood a desk that looked like it belonged in a 1950s corporate office. On it sat a single manila folder labeled, "Brennan, Thomas, Restaurant number 4417, integration complete." Tom opened the folder with trembling fingers. Inside were dozens of photographs of himself, Tom arriving at the restaurant, Tom studying the operations manual, Tom serving customers, Tom doing paperwork. In every photo, he was smiling that same unnatural smile, though he had no memory of posing for any pictures. The last photograph in the folder showed Tom standing in this very basement, holding this very folder, with that same smile on his face. "Welcome to the family, Mr. Brennan." Tom spun around to find Ms. Valdez standing at the bottom of the stairs. But now he could see what he'd missed before, her skin had a waxy, artificial quality, like a mannequin's. Her eyes were too bright, too focused, and when she smiled, he could see that her teeth were perfectly uniform, like tiles. "I was wondering when you'd find your way down here," she continued, walking toward him with movements that were just slightly off, as if she was remembering how humans were supposed to move. Most new owners discover the basement within their first month. You lasted longer than average. "What is this place?" Tom demanded, backing against the desk. "What's going on?" "This is the heart of your restaurant, Mr. Brennan. Every McDonald's has one. This is where we prepare the real special sauce." Ms. Valdez gestured to the vats of bubbling liquid. Up close, Tom could see that they contained more than just unidentifiable fluids, there were shapes moving beneath the surface, pressing against the sides like trapped animals. "What you don't understand," Ms. Valdez explained, "is that McDonald's isn't just a restaurant chain. It's an organism. A living entity that feeds on human satisfaction, on the simple pleasure people get from familiar food and familiar experiences. But that satisfaction has to come from somewhere." She opened one of the industrial ovens, revealing a space that was much larger inside than outside, filled with what looked like meat but moved and pulsed with its own rhythm. Every Big Mac contains a small portion of human contentment. Every happy meal includes a child's genuine joy. Every milkshake is sweetened with the memory of first dates and family outings. Tom stared in horror. That's impossible. You can't process emotions. Oh, but we can, Ms. Valdez said proudly. We've been perfecting the technique since 1955. Ray Kroc didn't just want to franchise restaurants, he wanted to franchise happiness itself. And he succeeded beyond his wildest dreams. She pulled out a thick ledger and opened it to a page marked Restaurant Number 4417, Emotional Harvest Quotas. Your restaurant is performing exceptionally well, Mr. Brennan. In just 6 weeks, you've processed 2,847 units of satisfaction, 1,093 units of nostalgia, and 534 units of pure joy. Corporate is very pleased. I haven't processed anything, Tom protested. I just serve food. Every time a customer smiles while eating our food, every time a child laughs while playing in the playplace, every time someone feels that warm familiarity of walking into a McDonald's. That's when the harvest happens. The emotions are extracted, refined, and redistributed through our global supply chain. Ms. Valdez walked to one of the grinding machines and patted it affectionately. This beauty can process a lifetime of birthday memories in just 3 minutes. We added to the cake batter for our apple pies. Tom realized he was still holding the folder with his photographs. In the dim basement lighting, he could see that his smile in the pictures was getting wider with each image, until in the final photograph, his grin stretched impossibly from ear to ear. You're insane, he whispered. I'm efficient, Ms. Valdez corrected. And soon, you will be too. The integration process is almost complete. Soon you won't remember being anything but a McDonald's owner. You won't remember your life before the franchise, your dreams beyond corporate profit margins, your desires outside of customer satisfaction scores. Tom felt something changing in his mind. The basement around him suddenly seemed normal, familiar. The industrial equipment looked like standard restaurant machinery. The bubbling vats smelled like French fry oil. Ms. Valdez looked like any other corporate representative. That's it, she encouraged. Let the franchise become part of you. Let McDonald's fill all the empty spaces in your soul. Tom found himself nodding. Of course this was normal. He was a McDonald's owner. This was his restaurant, his responsibility, his identity. He'd never wanted to be anything else, had he? Now, Ms. Valdez said, handing him a clipboard, let's go over this month's emotional harvest quotas. Corporate wants to increase joy extraction by 15%. I think we can manage that, don't you? Absolutely, Tom heard himself say, and was surprised by how genuine his enthusiasm sounded. Whatever it takes to maintain McDonald's standards. They walked back upstairs together, past the empty dining area where the chairs were neatly stacked on the tables. Tom locked the basement door behind them, wondering why he'd ever thought it was unusual. Every McDonald's had a basement. Every owner knew about the emotional processing equipment. It was all perfectly normal. Excellent work tonight, Mr. Brennan, Ms. Valdez said as they reached the front entrance. Keep up the good work, and you'll be eligible for our premium owner program within the year. What does that involve? Tom asked eagerly. Ms. Valdez's smile widened until it matched the impossible grin in Tom's photographs. Premium owners get to help with recruitment. There are always new franchise opportunities opening up, and we need experienced owners to help integrate the newcomers. She handed him a business card. This is your first prospect. He's been pre-approved for financing. All you need to do is show him the restaurant and explain the unique benefits of McDonald's ownership. Tom looked at the card. The name read, Michael Torres, franchise candidate number 4418. Below that was a phone number and an address. When should I contact him? Tom asked. Tomorrow would be perfect. The sooner we can expand our family, the better. Ms. Valdez left, and Tom stood alone in his restaurant, watching the sun rise through the windows. Soon, his employees would arrive for the morning shift. Soon, customers would come for their breakfast, trading small portions of their happiness for familiar food and comfort. Tom smiled his corporate smile and began preparing for another successful day of business. After all, he was living his dream now. He was part of the McDonald's family. And family was forever. He picked up the phone to call Michael Torres, already planning what to say. The franchise opportunity was too good to pass up. The location was perfect. The price was surprisingly low. And if Mr. Torres had any questions about the basement, well, Tom would explain that it was just corporate storage. Nothing to worry about. Nothing at all.